The cabin lights glowed with that familiar early morning haze, casting long shadows against the narrow aisle as passengers filed in with the groggy impatience of people who had woken up far too early. At seat 3A, Dr. Lena Carter gently set down her leather briefcase, worn at the edges, the kind that carried more secrets, policies, and flight safety reforms than anyone around her could ever imagine. She smoothed her blazer, the navy one she wore on days when she needed to look calm, composed, and unshakably professional. Today was one of those days. She was flying cross-country for a classified inspection, one that would determine whether a major airline would receive renewed authorization for a fleet upgrade. She wasn't traveling in uniform, not with badges exposed or credentials flashing. She traveled the way she preferred, invisible, quiet, observant. But as the plane filled, a flight attendant with a severe bun and a name tag reading Karen R. marched briskly down the aisle, her eyes scanning each seat like she was hunting for a problem. When she spotted Lena, her expression shifted. Not recognition, not concern, but a tightening, a narrowing, something cold and instantly familiar. "Ma'am," she said, her tone clipped, "I'm going to need to see your boarding pass." Lena offered a polite smile and handed it over without hesitation. Karen glanced at it for barely a second before her jaw tightened further. "This seat is reserved," she said, "for priority passengers." Lena blinked. "So am I," she replied calmly. "My ticket—" But before she could finish, Karen slammed the boarding pass back into her hand with a curt shake of her head. "I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding," she said loudly, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "These seats are reserved for business travelers, for people who actually belong here." The words struck like a slap, subtle enough to be deniable, sharp enough to bruise. A few passengers looked up in surprise, while others quickly looked down, pretending not to have heard. Lena inhaled slowly. She knew this dance too well. The assumptions, the quick judgments, the invisible walls. "Ma'am," she said evenly, "I am a business traveler. This is my assigned seat." But Karen already shook her head, her smile growing more brittle by the second. "I'm not going to argue," she said. "Come with me." Without waiting for permission, she grabbed the handle of Lena's briefcase, her government briefcase, and yanked it from the seat. Gasps erupted as it nearly tipped, spilling classified documents that absolutely could not afford to be scattered. Lena reached out, steadying it with a firm hand. "Please don't touch that," she said, her tone now edged with authority. Karen rolled her eyes. "Relax," she said. "It's not like it's anything important." She turned sharply and stormed down the aisle, expecting Lena to follow like someone in trouble. And though every instinct in Lena's body urged her to correct the woman, to warn her, to remind her of the consequences of interfering with federal property, she held back. She wanted to see how far Karen would go. She wanted to see how this story would unfold, not as Dr. Carter, not as director of the Federal Aviation Administration, but as the black woman she had been long before the titles. When Karen stopped at the last row, row 34, squeezed tightly between crying toddlers and the smell of old coffee, she gestured to the cramped middle seat. "You'll sit here," she said, "until we confirm you didn't take someone else's seat." The humiliation was meant to be complete, public, undeniable, degrading. Passengers watched, some with discomfort, some with judgment, some with the cruel curiosity of people who enjoy seeing someone put back in their place. Lena sat, gracefully, quietly. But deep inside her chest, a storm began to build. The plane vibrated gently as boarding finished, and the last passengers took their seats, while whispers rippled through the cabin like wind brushing over grass. People exchanged glances, some sympathetic, others suspicious, others simply relieved that the spectacle was finally over. Karen strutted up and down the aisle with the stiff confidence of someone who believed she had restored order. She avoided looking at Lena, avoided acknowledging the discomfort lingering around her like fog. The second flight attendant, a younger woman named Mia, moved through the cabin with hesitation, her nervous eyes flicking between her coworker and the woman banished to the last row. Eventually, she approached. "Ma'am," Mia whispered softly, I'm really sorry about earlier. I think there may have been a mistake." Lena met her eyes with a gentle steadiness. "I appreciate that," she said quietly, "but mistakes happen when systems allow them to." Mia swallowed, visibly troubled. Before either could say more, the captain's voice crackled over the speaker. "Flight crew, prepare for takeoff." The plane backed away from the gate, engines humming with anticipation. But just as it rolled onto the taxiway, the cockpit door flew open. The captain stepped out, pale and tense, holding a tablet. "Karen," he called sharply, "a word." Karen strutted up with misplaced confidence, but the captain didn't smile, he didn't whisper, he didn't sugarcoat. "Did you reassign a passenger from 3A?" he demanded. Karen's forehead creased. "Yes, she didn't look like... her ticket looked incorrect, probably a mistake." The captain's jaw locked. "We've just received communication from FAA headquarters," he hissed quietly, but not quietly enough. "Dr. Lena Carter is on this flight. She boarded earlier. She is traveling for a confidential inspection, and if she is not in her assigned seat, this entire flight is in violation of protocol." A gasp swept through the cabin like a shockwave. Lena did not move, did not blink, did not smirk. She simply watched. Karen's face drained of color. I didn't know." The captain's eyes hardened. "You didn't ask." The plane, which moments earlier buzzed with restless chatter, now simmered with palpable tension. Mia looked horrified. Several passengers exchanged uneasy glances, suddenly re-examining their own silent complicity. Karen swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "Sir, I can fix this. I'll just—" "No," the captain cut in. "You will apologize first." And with every pair of eyes on her, Karen turned, slowly, painfully, toward the back of the plane, toward the woman she had dismissed, belittled, and degraded. The aisle seemed to stretch miles long as she walked, each step heavier than the last. When she reached row 34, her voice cracked. "Dr. Carter, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize who you were." Lena finally stood, smoothing her blazer, gathering her briefcase with quiet dignity. She looked Karen directly in the eyes. "That," she said softly, "is exactly the problem." Gasps erupted again, not from shock, but from truth. Karen's lips trembled. "Please," she whispered, "let me escort you back to 3A." Lena paused, studying her, not with malice, not with vengeance, but with the measured composure of someone who had survived far worse than this moment. "No," she said gently. "You'll walk in front of me." Karen blinked, confused. "In front?" "Yes," Lena said, "because accountability leads the way." And as Karen turned, slowly, humbly, the entire cabin watched one of the most striking reversals of power they had ever seen. Lena walked behind her, calm as ocean stillness, the storm inside her finally settling into purpose. When they reached row 3, Mia stepped aside, eyes filled with shame, respect, and something like awe. Lena took her rightful seat. The captain met her gaze. "Dr. Carter, I deeply apologize. Focus on flying safely. We'll address the rest after landing."
Her voice carried a quiet authority that spread through the cabin like a wake-up call. People sat straighter. People breathed differently. People understood. And for the first time since boarding, the plane felt less like a vessel of hostility and more like a vessel of reflection, one that had just witnessed truth revealed in the most unforgettable way.
For the next several hours, the cabin remained unusually silent, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, contemplative kind. Passengers kept stealing glances toward 3A, toward the woman whose composure had revealed more power than any raised voice ever could. Karen avoided looking at anyone, her movements stiff, mechanical. Every time she passed Lena's row, she paused, as if an apology might rise again, only to swallow it back down, realizing that some consequences couldn't be undone in a single flight. As the plane neared its destination, turbulence shook the cabin, jolting passengers upright. The seatbelt sign dinged insistently. The captain's voice came through, tense but controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are encountering unexpected wind shear. Please remain seated." The plane dipped sharply, the drop wrenching gasps from every row. Another jolt, a scream. The overhead bins rattled violently. And then fear rose like a tide. Lena's eyes sharpened instantly. She leaned forward, analyzing the angle, the pattern, the rhythm of the turbulence. "He's adjusting too slowly," she whispered under her breath. She stood, ignoring protocol, ignoring the panic. Karen tried to stop her. "Ma'am, you can't be up during—" "Sit down," Lena commanded, not out of disrespect, but with the authority of a woman responsible for the safety standards of every aircraft in the nation. Karen froze. Lena reached the cockpit, knocked once, and the door opened for her faster than for any passenger in FAA history. Inside, the captain looked shaken. "Dr. Carter, the crosswinds." "Stabilize pitch to -2 degrees," she instructed. "Reduce thrust by 3%. Then correct roll 5 degrees left. Do it now." He followed instantly. The plane steadied, slowly, beautifully, like a wild animal soothed by a familiar voice. When it finally leveled, the entire cabin burst into relieved sobs, laughter, trembling breaths. As the plane touched down safely, applause erupted, loud, emotional, overwhelming. And this time, every eye turned toward Lena with gratitude, not judgment. When passengers began to exit, many paused to speak. A businessman said quietly, "I'm sorry I didn't say anything earlier." A mother whispered, "Thank you for saving us." A teenager murmured, "You showed me what strength really looks like." Karen approached last, shaking. "Dr. Carter, I can't undo what I did, but I want to learn from it." Lena studied her for a long moment. "Learning," she said softly, "starts with seeing people fully, even when they don't fit your assumptions." Karen nodded, tears filling her eyes. Lena exited the jet bridge into the sunlight, radiant, calm, powerful, unmistakably herself. And everyone who witnessed her that day carried a new kind of awareness, one they would never forget. If this story struck a nerve in you, if something in it made you pause, reflect, or feel the weight of a truth you've seen in real life, then I want you to stay with that feeling. Stories like this aren't just entertainment. They are reflections of what happens every day. The snap judgments, the quiet biases, the moments when people are underestimated simply because of how they look, and the powerful, transformative moments when truth is revealed and the world suddenly shifts. If this video opened your eyes to something, if it made you think differently about how you treat people, how you speak up, or how you observe injustice, then let it spark a conversation. Comment below, share your thoughts, share your experiences. Share a moment when you witnessed unfairness and wished you had done more. or a moment when you did step in and change the outcome for someone else. Your voice may be the one that inspires someone else to act. Share this video with someone who needs this reminder, someone who needs to recognize the weight of assumptions, or someone who needs to remember the strength of humility and accountability. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel. Not for numbers, not for metrics, but to help build a community where truth is spoken, where injustice is exposed, and where powerful stories like this can reach the people who need to hear them. Together, we can create a space where awareness leads to action, and where respect becomes the norm, not the exception. Thank you for watching. Thank you for feeling this story, and thank you for standing with me in telling the ones that matter.